Hey, good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend. I'm going to go through the process of setting up the PowerPoint for the game show. So this is, once you know how to do this, this kind of makes PowerPoint a little bit more interactive. So I think that this is a fun way to kind of set up some reviews and some study guides if you're studying for other tests or if you just wanted to maybe add a little bit more to your PowerPoint. So the first thing is you want to be in, if possible, you want to use the PowerPoint like application in Windows. The online one will still work, but the linking is a little bit different. So it's a lot easier to do this presentation or this project on the PowerPoint app rather than the online version. So the first thing is when you open up a blank PowerPoint, you're going to be getting a blank like title frame like this. Few things about PowerPoint if you've never used it before. If you wanted to change this layout, like let's say you didn't want this title, if you go up here to the top, you're going to see it says layout, and then you can pick whichever type of slide that you want. So in this case, I'm just going to do my demonstration on travel, and I'm going to call it travel game show. And then the other thing that PowerPoint has added in the past few years, when I say few years, I mean like 6 years or so, is they have this designer button. And it works in both, but if you're in the app, if you don't have it clicked, if you're on the home section right here, then you'll see this designer. And you don't have to use this, but because um, it's here. A lot of times it can help set up things like format and stuff like that. So I can look at these and maybe I like them, maybe I don't. I can also, if it goes kind of by the keywords that you've typed. So if I put travel right here, I can see what else it gives me once it loads. So if I say like travel game show, it'll probably focus on like games and stuff. But if I just put travel, sometimes you can see like different pictures and things. So let's say that I like this one. All right. Now, when I'm ready to make my new slide, the next slide that I want to do after my title slide is I want to make a like a table, like a Jeopardy table. So I'm going to just use a blank slide like this. And then if I go up here to insert, I'm going to make a table. So for this project, you can make whatever size you want, but I'm going to make mine 4 by 4. And you can see it'll give me these colors. If I want to change anything about this, and I'll just resize this to fill up the board. So like, let's say I don't like these colors. If I right click, you can see here, I can do format shape, and then I can pick, what color I want from that if I don't like this color. For this, I'm just going to leave it like this. And then this is where your categories are going to be as well as the number. So I'm going to say, like looking at this, I'm going to have one category for airports. I'm going to have another category for countries. I might have a category for languages. And then I might have a final category for something like food. And then this is where I start filling out the board. So typically, just to save myself some time, I'm just going to go ahead and fill out these numbers. So if you've ever played Jeopardy, one of the things that you do is you pick a category and then you pick a number for whichever question that you want. So, like in typically the way that it works, although for this project we're kind of just practicing, but the easier questions are worth less points and the more difficult questions are worth more points. All right. And then another thing that I also can do is I can fill this out a little bit better. So if I wanted to, for instance, like make this fill out this a little bit more, you can see if I kind of hover down like this, I'm going to keep it at 40 just because some of them may not quite fit in one line. And I can always resize it too, but if I go like this, again, if I highlight it, I can type in 40 and then hit enter. And in this case, it's not quite the same size, so I may need to go down a little bit, maybe to like 36. Just to keep things uniform, I'm going to go ahead and just resize them all to 36 just to make it a little bit easier for me, or to make it a little bit more uniform. And then the same thing here, and I'm not going to do this, make you watch all of this part, but again, you can resize it so that it looks maybe a little bit better right there. Okay, so once I've done this, I'm just going to show you how to do the first question, because after you've done the first one, it's just a matter of like writing the questions. So I'm going to make a new slide. I'm going to put one of these slides like this, and you'll notice like I have these categories and then I have the number. So the title, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say airports for 100, and then I'm going to write my first question. So, all right, so I have this. What is the abbreviation for the Tampa airport? And then I'm going to give my multiple choice answers. So I have A, B is the correct one, and then I'll do J. Okay. So these are my answer choices, and then these are going to be like, I'm going to have this correct one. Now, the way to link slides in PowerPoint, and this is why it's kind of important that you use the app, is if you highlight this word and then you right click it, you're going to see this option that says link right here. And it's going to give you all of these places. So it can go to like a web page if you want it to, or the one that we're looking for is where it says place in this document. And then you can see, and this is why I think it's a good idea. It's not required, but it's helpful if you put at the top the category and the number. So you can see right here, it says airports for 100, and then it has the question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll see this changes into a hyperlink. So just to kind of give you an illustration of what's happening, if I go to the slideshow, I'm going to hit from current slide, and then I'm going to see this 100 right here. And when I click it, it's going to take me to the question. Now, because this is PowerPoint and this isn't like a game engine, if I click again, it's just going to kind of take me out of this. So there is some things you're going to have to rely on the navigation of the person that's like using it or playing the game to not just click randomly, because it'll go through all of the slides. Now, the other thing is the basic goal of this is, now that we have our question, we need to have a way to tell if the question, like the person playing, got the question right or wrong. So if this is our first question, I need to have a slide, and I'm going to go ahead and go back here. I'm going to have a slide that says, I'm just going to use a title only. I'm going to have one that says correct. And then I'm going to have another slide that says incorrect. And what will happen is I'm going to link each of these to the appropriate slide. And then after that, this word is they'll click on this, and then it'll go back to the board, and then they can keep playing from there. So for instance, this one is not correct. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to hit link, and then I'm going to have this say incorrect. And okay. I'm going to do the same. Now this one is the right answer. So I right click, I'll hit link. I'm going to go to correct. This is not correct. And then this one is not correct. So again, right click, link, incorrect. All right. And then finally, the one that says correct and incorrect, what I want to do is have this link back to the board. So whatever they got it right or wrong, it'll take them back to the game show board so they can keep playing. So if I right click here, I'll go to link, and regardless, they're going to go back to the board. So I'll just hit slide 2, and then I'll do the same thing here. Whoops. Go back to slide 2. Okay. So the nice thing is I can just reuse these slides if I want to. I can add more to them. Like again, for this, you may want to have some themes. And if you have some pictures that you like, if you go to insert, you can go to pictures. You can find images maybe that you saved from the internet. You can find some stock images that come with PowerPoint. So if you like, again, with mine being travel, I could find some pictures of like airports or airplanes. Or you can also search online. This one can be sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't. But if you have pictures that you like, you can insert them and make them a little bit more like interesting rather than just the text. So again, now that I have this, I can go here. If I look at the designer, you can see that it gives you some kind of cool structures that you can use. So let's say that I like this one, right? Okay. And then for correct and incorrect, maybe I like this one. And then for incorrect, I'll just pick this one. All right. And so what ends up happening now is you would do the same thing for each place. So you'd have a question for each of the sections that you would want. So in this case, if I had like 200, again, I could write another question. Ideally, it would be getting more difficult each time, but that's how you would set up each of them. So it can be a bit of a process, but as you know from this year, like making games can just take a lot of like trial and error and trying to get it just takes a little bit of patience, but all of them kind of work the same. So now that I have this one, I can write another question for 200. So again, I'll go back here, I'll do this, I'll do airports for 200, and then I'll do the same thing. And again, I can link back to this. If you add a slide, for instance, this is airports for 100, this is airports for 200. If you add this here, it can just rename it or reorder it. Um, I may want to have all of my questions at the end like this. Now, something to just be aware of, like this link here, right? If it changes, like if you go in and change where slide it goes to, and you can see like they remove the hyperlink there. In this case, this would have to go to incorrect, and you may have to go through the link. So it does take a little bit of practice, but we'll just test it really quick. So I'll go here and link, hit OK. And then let's just see what happens when I go to the slideshow. So there I am. I'm gonna go to 100. And you can see like when I changed the format, it did get rid of my link. So I go here and then it says correct. But again, those links, once I added the formatting to it, it did change it. So I would have to go back and do this again. So I'll go back to the board. Let's practice it. All right. And then let's see if it works. And then again, I'm just looking here, making sure that it worked. See, it has a link right there now. So if it's saying this, and then I'll go back to this one. It's going to be the same thing. So again, moving things around, like once you kind of get the formatting, it does take a little bit of patience. All right, so let's just do a really quick test right there. Okay, 100. I have this one. It says incorrect, and then I can go back and I can try the question again if I want. And there it goes. All right, so that is the general setup. Again, it does take some patience to write each of the questions, but there are lots of tools to help write questions. So just something to be aware of as you're getting this set up. An important element of this too is to have somebody like play test your game just to make sure that everything's kind of working as intended. So that's one of the other parts of game development, as we know, that can be really important, especially when you get to like the end and you're trying to make sure everything worked correctly. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions in class, just let me know. But like I said, this is a great sort of tool to practice studying, and writing questions can really be helpful as well when you're studying for tests. So have a good rest of your week.